Good afternoon. My name is Jason Fang. I'm the founding partner of Sora Ventures. Today is a very special panel because I think we're the only panel in the entire conference that is 50 minutes long. We've been partnering with Taipei Blockchain Week since 2 years ago, and 2 years ago we did our first Bitcoin conference, and this year we've been heavily invested into Bitcoin treasuries. As of today, we have done 5 Bitcoin treasuries, one on NASDAQ, one in Japan, Metaplanet, Hong Kong, Moon Inc., Thailand, DV8, and South Korea, BitPlanet. Throughout this journey, we've been relatively low-key about what we do. We've been relatively low-key about our strategy. And for most people, we've been relatively low-key in terms of sharing kind of the alpha. And really, this is the first panel publicly for the first time that we're sharing a lot of the strategies and how we think and the perspective on why this is important. And we're doing this today because we'll also have a public company in Taiwan. The goal is to have 9 public companies by the end of this year that is doing Bitcoin strategy. If anyone's been following the news, about 10 minutes ago, we just announced our $1 billion USD fund dedicated to buying Bitcoin in the next 6 months. This is Asia's first Bitcoin treasury fund ever to announce such commitment, and we have about 200 million committed already. So today we have very special guests from different places representing Sora Ventures. I can quickly go over it, but we're also going to get a much more extensive intro. So Eli has been with Goldman Singapore, and then after that he joined Binance, one of the early Binance guys who did all the fiat channels, and then was at head of exchange for Coins.ph, and then joined Sora Ventures to help with all the Southeast Asian deals we've done. This is also Luke's, John, is this your second time in Taipei? Second time?
Second time.
Yeah, so John's second time. John, 10 plus years in Bitcoin, used to represent Bitcoin Magazine, and then the founding partner of UTXO, which is the largest Bitcoin fund in the world, and now heading CEO as Moon Inc. And then this is Luke, who is managing, also the partner at Sora Ventures. This is actually his first time in Taiwan, and he comes from a very interesting background from UBS, a lot of senior positions at UBS, and then Equity First. If you didn't know Equity First, they're the largest lenders for BTC in Asia. At one point, the largest in South Korea. So he's been doing mostly trading, structured product, and lending and collateral BTC products. And so he's going to be talking about more on the U.S. market, kind of the global fundraising, and kind of how institutions think. I think I actually did a pretty thorough intro, but anything you guys want to add? Eli?
No, I think that's pretty thorough. Thank you.
Yeah. John, you good?
Great intro. Thank you, Jason.
Okay, so I'll start with much more recent news, which is, the U.S. have been saturated with Bitcoin treasuries. I think to the point that yesterday we saw the news that NASDAQ is going to come out with some form of policy that would kind of slow things down a bit. We don't know exactly what that means, but for sure, I think that it's already a signal to a lot of the retailers that people should be more cautious about investing in these digital asset plays. I think a lot of people recognize that in Asia we have been quite aggressive on investing Bitcoin treasury plays, not as a single region, but more as kind of like a continent, like Asia, for example. Eli, you've been working in Singapore, you're Malaysian, the Philippines, Thailand. Can you share about kind of like what benefit there is for doing this kind of consortium play, and why is it important for Thailand and Southeast Asia to get involved with Bitcoin?
Yeah, sure. I'll kind of touch on firstly from the aspect of capital market and also like the crypto market participation from public. Just take Thailand for example. Like the largest licensed exchange over there, they have about like 5 million users that are registered, but like the stock exchange only has around 2 million users, right? So I think it is a very interesting place where like people actually they do want to invest, but then like on one hand on like the crypto side, like they don't really find really trusted and reliable place for them to gain exposure, right? And yet at the same time, on the stock market, I think Thailand stock market has not seen a lot of interesting stuff. Like there's very minimal like new IPO. There's almost like no tech companies involved. So like for us, like we think it's a very interesting time, for us to bring the two together, right? We can bring them the crypto exposure, which the market really wants, and at the same time, like we can basically like revive the stock market trading volume, basically giving them like more interesting narratives for them to invest alongside. Yeah.
I mean, you are running Coins.ph. People don't know Coins.ph is the largest crypto exchange in the Philippines. And I know you guys have the license in the Philippines at one point and still have the license, right? And then you guys were working on the license in Thailand. But in between, there was a lot of issues and challenges. How is that model different from what a lot of stuff we're doing?
Yeah, sure. So I think, like for all of the regulators in the world, and especially in Southeast Asia, it's actually a very long process for them to really get to know, like, how does these exchanges operate, like what exactly is cryptocurrency. In fact, like Coins.ph, we also do have one of the earliest license in Thailand. And we were basically at the stage where we had to tell the regulators about what custodies are. We had to introduce like guys like Big Go over to them, and we basically like had to make the introduction to them. So obviously like years have passed, but kind of like the gist of it that we have seen is that like they don't really know how to really properly handle like newer crypto exchanges just because it's so new to them. Instead, like what we are trying to do here is like using the rules and regulations imposed by like the SET, which is the Stock Exchange of Thailand, and also by like the Securities Commission. We basically give both the regulators comfort, given that they are already like existing and robust rules that we have to follow. For people to really like know that this is a place that they can trust and they can gain like crypto exposure safely.
So from what I'm hearing is that as opposed to starting we're starting at one location and moving on to expanding using the same entity. The way that we're doing right now is significantly faster because we're investing in those countries ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's not just like putting in investment, right? We have reiterated to people all the time that like for us it's not purely just investment, but like we really do want to transform the companies into like proper businesses whereby like we can generate revenue, like we can like still provide something on top of like just the Bitcoin holdings itself. So by investing across in like different listed companies, we are actually able to not just like have an investment, right? But we basically like invest, we operate, and we form an ecosystem around, which like to me is very exciting because like coming from crypto exchange previously, like all of the crypto exchanges in different regions, especially the licensed ones, they operate in silo, right? But now it's one of the first times that we are seeing that you can cooperate cross region, which is one of the things that really motivate us.
Yeah, I know you mentioned a lot on kind of the revenue business side, which is something that a lot of U.S. side they don't really focus on because in the U.S. There's not a lot of regulation on how you can stack Bitcoin, and so people just raise and then stack Bitcoin and then raise again and stack Bitcoin. Strategy is a great example, but in Asia things are very, very different, and we know that because right after MetaPlanet we did Hong Kong. Which is run by John, who's the CEO. John, can you share a bit more about like what has been some of the most interesting lessons you've learned running Moon Inc.? How is that different from what you've seen with Strategy, MetaPlanet, and more importantly, why the emphasis on the revenue and the business?
Sure. So I'm the CEO of Moon Inc. And so that's one of the main reasons we acquired 1723 as our first move in Hong Kong, is that that legacy business was in the prepaid product sector, which we thought fit perfectly in this ecosystem for being something that we could inject a Bitcoin product category for. So we've launched a prepaid Bitcoin card at Moon Inc. That will be rolling out around Asia now. and generating revenue from Bitcoin business that is in demand from other markets. And so that revenue generation, especially kind of that Bitcoin-based revenue, will allow us to continue to grow our balance sheet and give investors in the Hong Kong capital market and from outside of Hong Kong something that we think is also in demand, which is exposure to Bitcoin via a publicly listed stock in Hong Kong. So that's kind of the longer term strategy. A Bitcoin vision for the future within an existing product category that we're excited about still.
Yeah, and I can share from experience is that I think we are the second public company to buy Bitcoin, right? Or maybe the third, I forgot.
Technically third, but
technically
Bitcoin
third.
only, we're number 2.
Right, but after our announcement, we bought 1 Bitcoin. After that announcement, our stock shot up by, 950 million Hong Kong dollar. It really changed on how locals, Chinese, Hong Kong investors think about, we're basically foreigners. We're entering the Hong Kong market with, limited experience on running these things, but then somehow we're able to make it happen. And for them, really, it sparked a lot of excitement and passion that they could do it too. And ever since, we've seen a handful of these public companies in Hong Kong announcing digital asset treasury plays. But what's really interesting about that is that most of them still haven't figured out the revenue side of it. And a big part of it is when they purchase a public company in Hong Kong, most of the public companies they purchase are usually under like constructions. If you guys didn't know, construction shells in Hong Kong are the cheapest in Hong Kong. And so, obviously from a MNAV or from a investment perspective, it makes plenty of sense to be investing in shelves, but that's cheap. But it comes with a long-term bottleneck, which is it'll be very difficult for a lot of these public companies to really scale on the Bitcoin balance sheet because exchange really cares about how correlated you are with kind of the actual business. And it's difficult to change business. It takes about 3 years to change an actual business in Hong Kong. Sometimes the exchange will ask for 5 years. And so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I want to move on to Luke, who comes more from the trading secondary background. He's done a lot at Equity First. He was basically one of the guys who were leading the entire Asia operations. Can you share more about what you did at Equity First and then how you got into joining Sora Ventures to help us with what we're doing today?
So before, about like 6 years ago, mainly what we did for Equity First is a U.S. fund, and it was trading a traditional stock secondary market. We did a lot of pledging, and we did a lot of like quant trading. It then started from COVID. We see a lot of attention switching from the traditional finance to crypto, and then we started to explore opportunities in crypto lending as well. So we have a lot of attractions, especially after the war. We see a lot of needs from Ukrainians and Russians living in Dubai try to take advantage of the crypto. So that's where our business kind of took off. Also, because we are doing a lot of business in different countries in Asia, not only Hong Kong markets, also in Korea. We did really well in Korea. I think we opened a branch in 2021, and we started with one of the largest family, Lotte, and then we moved to other families like Kakao or Hyundai. So we became one of the largest crypto lender and stock lender in Korea for just within like 2 years' time. And moving on to Sora, I think the reason that we came in all together here, the reason that why we want to do 9 different list codes in Asia is because eventually we are having something even bigger, which is the US side, because that's where, to be honest, that's where all the liquidity is right now in the world. If you want to raise money, raise a large amount of money, it has to be the US market, because all the institutional investors have all the liquidity in the world, and they can only do it in the US market. So that's why we have this company listed on NASDAQ. We just changed the name to Asia Strategy. So our vision here is trying to build a very grand pictures, like a DAT play of Berkshire, similar to that. So we want to eventually have a majority shareholding of all the listcos in Asia that we did. And we also going to be a DAT play company in the US. So the money we raise, about like 60% of the money will go straight to a purchase of Bitcoin. And about like 30% of the money will be keep investing into the listicle that we acquired in Asia. So try to have a differentiation with all the other companies in the States. So because right now, as you can see, a lot of players in the US just want to take advantage of this hype, raise a large amount of money without the worry about being super diluted. But what we do is step by step, where we do it fast, but we do it small. On one hand, we try to retain the majority shareholding of the company, and the other hand is we're trying to build something even bigger. So we have a plan. We just did a fundraise of $10 million, literally like 2 weeks ago, and we are going to raise somewhere around $30 million to $50 million very soon, within a month. And by the end of this year, we try to do something even bigger to keep the pace of Jason's step, because Jason tried to move fast with all the other listcos in, like he mentioned, in Taiwan and the other jurisdictions. So the eventual goal for from Sora's perspective is we try to build something very, very big. And the reason that we're focusing on Asia is because we see a lot of players in Australia, in Europe, or in the States, they just buy a shell company and they announce that they want to hold Bitcoin and pump out the stock price. But the reason that we focus on Asia is because, first of all, our team is very Asian-oriented, and we understand the culture, we understand the jurisdiction, we understand the local partners and how they think, and how can we pull all the resources into our play. And the second thing is because Asia has a very high entry barrier. So different jurisdictions have different regulations. The reason that we help with the MetaPlanet and John with Moonink, and also the one we did in Thailand, the one we did in Korea, actually is a very good manifestation of what we are capable of. So we want to keep focusing on this market and build something very big. It's like our vision is to have a lot of MetaPlanet-like success in all the jurisdictions in Asia. And we combine those together, and we put in our US listco, and that's when we have the ability to pull all the resources together and compete in the US market. So that's like our grand vision. Yeah.
So Luke, you mentioned about you want to build the Berkshire Hathaway, basically of the Bitcoin strategy you play in Asia. And obviously that takes time, and because partially as I'm working on closing a lot of these 9 public companies in Asia. I think we're going to announce maybe 2 more next month. So you can just kind of follow us and then see how fast we're moving. But I remember tweeting about 6 months ago that we're going to do 9 public companies, and everyone thought I was insane. Everyone called me crazy. And now it's like halfway in, and we have all the major markets down, right? The last one is Taiwan, and the rest is like Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Indonesia, or Vietnam. And we'll basically have most of Asia, right? And what's crazy about these deals we've done is every time our name is being announced, it's up like 10x, 15x, and people underestimate that value, which is like people focus on Japan or people focus on US, but it's like, we did one in Thailand, and it's up 15x, and we got to meet with Thaksin, who is the former prime minister of Thailand, and he was extremely bullish that the fact that we're investing into Thailand, that we're willing to make a long-term play in Thailand, that we're able to bring a lot of talents into Thailand, and that most importantly, we're getting his blessing to continue what we're doing, right? And what we've seen in kind of the large markets is that yes, there's less regulatory bottlenecks, but then at the same time it becomes more competitive, and it's different to differentiate yourself. It's difficult to differentiate yourself, but we've been very fortunate because we're the first ones who did the MetaPlanet, and then after that we did Hong Kong, and then I was on the board of MetaPlanet for 4 months, and I left to kind of pursue this goal around Asia. And then most importantly is in the US, we're able to kind of build a gateway, a proxy for US retailers to get exposure into all the MetaPlanets that we're doing in Asia. So I mean, obviously, people in theory can open a bank account in Thailand, in theory open a bank account in Hong Kong, in theory open a bank account in South Korea, but I think the likelihood is very slim. And so the idea is that they will just buy Asia strategy stocks and that will give them exposure. Still early, but that's the plan. Okay, so I want to talk about something that is kind of interesting, which is, recently there has been this news on NASDAQ that talks about they're going to introduce policies that kind of would kind of perhaps reduce the time and the ability to execute on these plays. What does that mean for Asia? Maybe start with Eli.
Yeah, sure. So I guess that news overnight kind of like weighed down a lot on the markets, like with some of them really taking a hit. But it's also not entirely unexpected in a sense. Is like regulators are just trying to catch up. But I guess the really good thing is like we're seeing them trying to be more cautious, but they're not putting on like a hard stop on it, right? This is typically seen when like they are in the process of learning, but like unfortunately like the speed of like the companies raising, I think like there's like about like 145 companies based on the article. So for sure like they want to like make sure that they have more leeway to control. So I don't really think that will be a like an immediate issue within Asia because they are earlier in the in the cycle, like you don't see the same number of companies raising that. But also at the same time, like Asian regulators has always been very has been a lot more hands-on rather than being rule-based. So everything that we do, it's not just about like following the rules and like making sure that we don't breach anything that we're not supposed to, right? Everything that we do, we need to talk to them. Everything that needs to make sense to them, we need to educate them. So in a sense, it's like we don't really run into the same problem as US in that sense. And I guess like also. When we have, the Thailand public company, we actually are way ahead of curve. Right now, it's on public record, but we have around 24 million USD in cash. So that is already quite impressive. Like we are way ahead of all of the companies out there in terms of cash balance. So that's something that we can build on using the war chest.
Yeah, and this morning somebody asked me, this policy that came out, is it? So my understanding in the article was, out of today, all these DAT plays have raised about 98 billion USD. And so obviously the regulators are very keen to regulate and apply some policies that would restrict and make this much more safe for retailers to purchase. John, I mean, you come from a Bitcoin community. You come from pure Bitcoin, 10 plus year Bitcoin. And BTC Inc. has a very good relationship with the Trump administration. My understanding is you guys were involved with kind of writing the executive order for Bitcoin, the White House. So you probably have a bit more information on this policy. Is this targeting mainly altcoin, do you think, or is it including Bitcoin as well?
Yeah, I maybe can just comment more generally on how the administration sees Bitcoin and wants to kind of usher in progress in terms of how the government deals with it. We at BTC Inc. BTC Inc. got involved with the Trump campaign really to invite him to speak at the Bitcoin conference along with Kamala Harris, the other nominee for president back then, and just give kind of the Bitcoin community a chance to look at both candidates, a chance to hear how they were going to approach the topic. Donald Trump in that process, became someone that was seeking out advice from the community for how to, approach this topic in a productive way. And so he was, taking a lot of feedback from us, from the community. And essentially what happened is that he ended up taking the community's advice literally in developing his Bitcoin policy. And as his administration has progressed just in the first few months here, he's been ticking off every single policy priority that he promised before the election. And so I think that just shows that he's delivering on what was promised, and he wants the government to be forward-thinking and when it comes to regulating Bitcoin at all the different agencies, from the SEC to the Department of Justice, everywhere the government touches Bitcoin. We think that the people who've been put in charge want to see Bitcoin succeed in the U.S. The new SEC chair was actually an LP in a fund that we're involved with. We know that he wants to see Bitcoin regulated in a productive way, and I think that is true across the whole administration. Also in the legislature, Cynthia Lummis is someone we're close to. She announced at the Bitcoin conference last year also that the Congress would seek to implement a Bitcoin acquisition strategy at a federal level. Everything that we hear indicates that that's still the plan in a later legislative session. So I think that from the U.S. side, it's only bullish on how they approach Bitcoin. These decisions by specific exchanges where they want to deal with specific market sentiment maybe are outside of a government, certainly executive branch directive. And I think that we'll see kind of different exchanges around the world approach this maybe with a little bit more caution. I would say maybe more caution on the non-Bitcoin digital asset side because of how how Bitcoin has kind of been defined very clearly around the world in terms of what it is in each market. In the U.S. it's a commodity and is an easier thing to navigate. But I think that each exchange around the world is going to approach this on their own. Certainly our experience in Hong Kong is that they take dialogue with investors, with the product side at the exchange very seriously, and are very deliberate about doing something that's best for all shareholders in Hong Kong. We've seen the Bitcoin exposure via a public company work very well in a market like Japan, where it brought in a lot of outside capital, a lot of trading activity to the exchange, and we think that long term that's something that each of these markets has demand for, is exposure to Bitcoin via a public stock. So I think that the trend for that continues around the world.
Yeah, it's interesting that Michael Saylor from Strategy, when he did the Bitcoin narrative, Nasdaq was okay with that, and then somehow now we have a bunch of altcoin on Nasdaq. They're like, "Well, you guys have to hold, you have to hold on." And what are you guys doing? Right? This is not right, right? So I have my opinion on why that's the case, because obviously we've been in this business for some time. But Luke, you come from a traditional, more on the TradFi side, right? If I have $1 million USD, how would I allocate this? Is it mostly in Bitcoin and mostly in altcoin? Because I got asked this question, which is obviously Sora is very very heavily involved in actually 100% in Bitcoin treasury plays. Why haven't we done anything outside of Bitcoin? Why haven't we invested in Sui, or like ETH or like Solana or like any of the other altcoins? Maybe it would be interesting to hear from your perspective as an investor, what are kind of the pros and cons investing in Bitcoin versus altcoin in this treasury plays?
Yeah, so I actually thought about this a lot. As we can see right now, there are a lot of small cap tokens. They try to take advantage of this hype and try to liquidate through secondary market. So from my point of view is, from the trading perspective, BTC and ETH, Solana, like all those Bitcoins, they probably don't have anyone who can have absolute control on the underlying asset. So that means, for example, if a market crash is coming and Bitcoin-wise, if Saylor doesn't really dump in the market, the underlying asset is kind of protected. So even though there's a huge correction on the stock price, but the underlying assets is safe. But if there's a small token, like what we call altcoins, actually there might be a few people or the foundation that controls over the token. So that will be running into a potential situation like what happened in 2008, where the actual controller of the small token tried to sell before anybody else. So that will create a death spiral to the stock price and also the token price. Which means there's going to be a crash for all the altcoins in the market. So in terms of that, if I have like $1 million that I want to play in this DAT play, I would definitely go with Bitcoin first because underlying asset is the most safe as compared to other altcoins. And maybe ETH and Solana, but those have different fundamental idea as opposed to Bitcoin because Bitcoin is anti-dilution and there's just that many of Bitcoin in the world and it's going to be harder and harder to get it. So I actually heard about this right now in this current stage. There's only 3 ways you can get Bitcoin. One is to use US dollars or anything similar fiat money to buy it on the market at the market price, or you invest money into a mining company and just mine it yourself. And the third is to hack it, just steal from other people. So that means like Bitcoin is really hard to get and it has its undervalue in a lot of applications. Like I mentioned before, what we see after this war and this global instabilities, a lot of people don't have the ability to open a lot of accounts across the world, so they're holding a large amount of crypto, which 90% of them are in the form of Bitcoin. So there are a lot of applications and real life needs for Bitcoin to move around the world. So I think in terms of investment, Bitcoin DAT play is definitely the safest, and it has a mutual consensus around the world that the price of Bitcoin is going to go up after cycles. And we have seen it for the past 15 years, 13 years. So I think the trend is going to go up. But in terms of the other coins, there's not that long history and we don't know for sure. So the volatility is definitely going to be bigger and the instability is definitely going to be bigger. So in terms of risk, it's definitely going to be bigger. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting about crypto is that crypto can be listed on many crypto exchanges, and so you have this much larger chance of getting a lot of more volume. And then the DAT plays you're just listed on one exchange, right? And so from my perspective, when I think about it, it's like, if Ethereum drops 10%. How much would the Ethereum DAT plays drop? And some people will say, it will drop the same amount. If Ethereum drops 10%, then the DAT for Ethereum will also drop 10%. But I have I want to give you a perspective. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I have a feeling it's going to drop more than 10%. And the reason for that is because Ethereum on the crypto exchanges, they have a lot more volume, significantly more volume. I mean, a good example is Tron. Tron has billions of dollars of volume, whereas Tron on the Nasdaq has 20 mil volume, or probably less than that. And so, which one is harder to manipulate? Obviously, the one in the U.S. And so, the one in the U.S. will 100% will be more volatile. And this is why our fund, even though we're heavily invested in digital asset treasuries, only focus on Bitcoin. I'm not sure if I want to get your perspective. Is there something that you thought about?
Yeah, in terms of the market movement against the price of the coins that the company holds, let me give you an example. Like MicroStrategy is trading at a premium of about 1.7 times. So let's say it's 2 times. So that means because the stock price is kind of packed to the BTC price. So if BTC increased by 10%, that means MicroStrategy stock is actually up by 20%, which means they have the 2 times premium. And in terms of the DAT play company in Asia, the premium, that's the norm valuation benchmark for all the DAT play companies in the world right now, the MNAV wise is even higher. For example, like MetaPlanet is trading over 6 times premium. So that means the volatility of MetaPlanet is definitely going to be much larger than MicroStrategy. So as Jason mentioned, yes, so when the market of the token, the price moves, the stock price will move even larger, packed to their premium. So if the trading premium 2 times, then the movement is 2 times. So buying a stock, that DAT play stock, it's like buying the token, the underlying asset with the leverage. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important because a lot of people don't understand, and a lot of people always ask me is like, hey, should I buy ETH? Should I buy SWI? Should I buy all that? And they don't look at the technical stuff, which is, here, I think Luke could point out leverage, and hopefully from this talk, you guys can learn a bit more and hedge better and kind of evaluate do your risk management better, right? So we have about 10 minutes left. There's actually a lot that I want to discuss, but fundamentally, one of the things that I think people want to know is that as a long-term investment, are these DAT plays, are these kind of like a fad? Is this here to stay? Why is it? How are these public companies able to kind of get across, the next bear market, for example? Have you guys thought about that, and maybe share some of the strategies that you think would be unique, and maybe end with something that out of all the DAT plays that you see in the market, which one do you think, Bitcoin or ETH or SWI, that you think makes the most sense?
Yeah, sure. I'll start. So I'll take the perspective of particularly on the Southeast Asian DAT plays, right? Like Southeast Asia, the capital market itself is very different, both in terms of like the size and also like the financial instruments that we have access to in order to fundraise. So, it would be quite unrealistic for us to like say we want to use Thailand to directly beat like MicroStrategy's Bitcoin accumulation, or even like Metaplanet's like goal of 1%, right? But like having worked in like multiple countries here in Southeast Asia and having lived there almost my entire life, what I can tell you is that like Southeast Asia is still showing a very, very good like ROI in terms of businesses, right? So
they're saying that Southeast Asia right now is like 20 years ago for China, right?
Pretty much, yes. Okay. Yeah. So we're seeing growth. So what we are essentially doing is that we're doing this dual strategy, right? Like the Bitcoin accumulation, kind of shows to the market that like we can easily beat like the cost of capital that people have around, right? And on our business revenue, it's much easier to generate sustainable revenue and like profit in Southeast Asian context versus say in the US, where like things are a lot more crowded, there's higher taxes, etc. And yeah, we think that like we can really build like a Bitcoin centric business around, and we will be able to like either cooperate with like different DAT companies around the region, or even like have act as a service provider as a hub for Southeast Asia, right?
Got it. So Southeast Asia, it has an environment where it provides the ability to provide more revenue and cash.
Yeah, correct. And this is especially amplified when we are able to leverage the differences. It's almost like an arbitrage, right? So we are able to arbitrage between different jurisdictions. Like say, for example, like you can just business-wise, right? Like people can do businesses in Singapore. Singapore does have like a crypto exchange license regime, but as we all know by now, like it's extremely restrictive. But this is also the reason why we have big Thailand, because like Thailand, we think it's still highly regulated and trusted by like the public. Yet at the same time, it doesn't really have a lot of restrictions. We are actually able to freely service clients from around the region or even globally. Yeah.
John, any comments on that in Hong Kong?
Yeah, I can speak from the Hong Kong perspective for sure. The reason that we were interested in the Hong Kong market is that I spent really the first part of my career in Bitcoin working in China, actually. And back then, the biggest exchange volumes were in China. All the biggest miners manufactured in China and mined in China. And it was really just the center of Bitcoin activity. And the market has developed around the world since then. But we still see the greater China market as kind of the center for Bitcoin in the future. And the question on why is a Bitcoin treasury company in a public market an interesting way to get exposure to Bitcoin? Well, for Hong Kong, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange has some of the most strict and I think best regulation around how public companies operate. So if you get exposure to Bitcoin via a company with Bitcoin on its balance sheet in Hong Kong, you can be sure that that company's releasing audited financials, for us every quarter. That they're working with a regulated custodian in Hong Kong, like we're doing. And then you can get exposure with money that's in your brokerage account, or money that you can take a loan against via your brokerage or something like this. And so the benefits to getting Bitcoin exposure via a public company are numerous outside of just the leverage piece and outside of just the hope to get some alpha on a Bitcoin position.
Is this only for Hong Kong or for mainland as well?
We are listed in Hong Kong. We see the Greater China market as the biggest Bitcoin opportunity that exists in capital markets moving forward, and we'll see how kind of that story develops. But the Hong Kong exchange, I think, has the right approach to this, and is something that we are happy to be a part of as one of the first and largest companies focused on kind of that future where Bitcoin is an important part of the capital markets, and then also commerce with the products that we have.
Can you share more about the Hong Kong Connect and how it works? Stock Connect?
Sure. Well, just generally, Southbound Connect in China connects the Shanghai Stock Exchange, Shenzhen Stock Exchange to Hong Kong. And every public company in Hong Kong wants to get big enough that it has an opportunity to dual list in mainland China. That's something every company aspires to be large enough. Right now it's around a 6 billion Hong Kong dollar market cap that puts you kind of in the category of being able to dual list. But that's something that every public company in Hong Kong wants to be large enough to hit those thresholds. And is something that I think is a good program that exists, that the exchanges between mainland China and Hong Kong want to see grow.
Got it. So basically, if companies in Hong Kong get into Hong Kong Connect, people in China can buy it directly using a bank account.
Generally, the program facilitates that.
Got it. Okay. So I guess the long-term vision for Hong Kong is that a lot of these companies want to get into the mainland market through the Connect, Hong Kong Connect.
I think every public company in Hong Kong wants to be big enough to reach those thresholds.
Got it. Okay. Luke, from your perspective, what are some of the strategies that you think would keep these DAT plays intact for the long-term play?
I think for the long-term play, this is one of the things that a lot of companies right now they don't have is to have a core business which generate cash flow, which is very important. It's like what I mentioned about Berkshire. They are holding a insurance company that generate a large amount of cash flow. So even though MicroStrategy is this big, it still has its core business. And I think Metaplan is trying to look for something even bigger in terms of digital banking or other type of business related to why the company is holding so much Bitcoin in the first place. Even though Bitcoin itself is something very valuable, and the value of it it's gonna appreciate due to the consensus of the world, but having a core business which can generate very positive cash flow is very important. And I think most of the company, I would say probably 95% of the company in the world doing DAT are missing out that. That's something that we are thinking, and we are working really hard on all the list codes that we do, like Jason mentioned. So I think that's something that we should keep an eye on it, and we should keep exploring. I know it's hard, but it's something very important to sustain the whole picture and the whole game.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned that, whereas a lot of public companies in the US have done these large pipes, we've actually done the opposite. We've done 7% raise of the market cap or 5% raise of the market cap. Can you share a bit more from a technical perspective how that benefits shareholders?
Yeah, so right now, because we think our company, like all the list codes that we did, is still at a very, very early stage. So I actually talked to a lot of potential investors, and they mentioned about MNAV or how to calculate your market cap, your valuation. I don't really see us as a very mature company like Metaplan or MicroStrategy, where you can be defined as based on MNAV. We consider ourselves as an early stage company that has a huge potential in the future. So that's why we're doing this small raise, because we don't want to dilute our shareholding that quickly. Just to protect our early investors. And we want to have the ability to continue showing the market that this is what we want to do, and we want to be in this game for a longer term, not just to ride this hype and just to capitalize within 3 months or 6 months like a lot of people did. So this is the whole fundamental idea behind why we want to do this small round of raise, but we want to do it really fast. So we're going to keep like building up our portfolio, buying Bitcoin, keep investing on the Lisco that we did, definitely with the step of Jason, and he needs to be on the ground, try to close all the deals. So yeah, we're moving fast.
Yeah, and to give perspective, when we mean small cap, it's like what 150, 170 million USD market cap.
Like probably less than that. We see a lot of like a Chinese ADR company with somewhere market cap less than 10 million, and they still do a large round of fundraising. To me, I think the dilution of previous shareholder is a little bit too big. So I think next round will be very difficult for them to raise anything. Because if I'm an institutional investor, I'll be very cautious on investing in a company that I do not know who's behind this, who is the actual controller of the company. That's because we as a Sora, as a brand, we want to show the world that this is what we do, and we are going to be here for the long term, and we're not going to sell the Bitcoin just right after we have it. That's the whole point of building the trust and building a reputation to let further investors to believe in our play. Yeah.
Okay, we got 2 minutes left. Okay, all the DAT plays out there, right? Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, you name it. Which one are you most bullish on? Just name one.
Bitcoin.
Okay, Bitcoin. We got Bitcoin.
Of course, Bitcoin.
Okay, of course, Bitcoin.
Same.
Okay, so we got it, guys. Just buy Bitcoin. All right, thanks a lot.